Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Monorail Monday. It's been a while. Since we got together and chatted a little bit about Disney, so let's get back into it. The previous episode, we talked about the 5 best things about working at Disney. I'll put a link to that down below in the description, and you can see what were the 5 best things about working at Disney. Today, a little more negative in tone. We're going to be talking about the 5 worst things about working at Disney. These are my personal experiences or opinions or thoughts on just when I was coming up with this list, what the worst things that bothered me the most about working at Disney. Maybe you have some different ones. If you do, or you work at Disney, or you have worked at Disney, let me know. Feel free to comment below and let us know what the worst thing about Disney is as a guest, from a guest perspective. But let's get into the list. Eliminating things. And what do I mean by eliminating things? I mean Disney getting rid of some sort of benefit or some sort of park plus, and just getting rid of those things. As a cast member, one of my favorite things in my first couple of years as cast member were the Christmas parties, and they were basically like the Mickey Very Merry Christmas Party, what they have for guests. It was like that, but for cast members, and ridiculous discounted things. Like a turkey leg, might be $1, and a popcorn would be $0.25, and it would just be all cast members, and we'd have several nights, and you sort of reserve which night you want to go, and you could bring a guest or a friend. And so it was just all cast members working these nights, and they were the predecessor to the current parties, ticketed parties that cost upwards of $150 now. They were a cast perk, and I loved those. That was so much fun. It was so cool, so interesting, so neat to go in the park. Everything was discounted. You get the parades and all this stuff, and it was just open to cast members, and that was really great. Then one year, it got eliminated, and it went from being a special park closed to guests event to, all right, we're going to give you a special ticket to get into the park, and you can take a guest, and you go in during normal hours. Well, I can get into the park any day. I don't need the special ticket now. You got a ticket that you could bring a guest with you or whatever. But they basically said, now the cast crystal, you can go to any of the 3 parks. And then they had some special things, like behind the scenes they had cookies and some punch and things like that behind Horizons or something like that. Or a couple locations in each park where you could go behind the scenes and get a Christmas cookie and maybe a photo with a backdrop or something like that. It was all just a couple of behind the scenes stuff. You're basically going during normal guest hours, so that really took the specialness out of it, which was very frustrating. So that's just one example, but like even eliminating things for guests is a hassle, because then the cast members, frontline cast members, are left trying to explain why these things are a plus. For instance, Disney at one point, they had the Magic Kingdom had fireworks every night. Illuminations was going off every night. The studios fireworks, nighttime entertainment, was going off every night. You could go to any of the 3 parks, and something was going on every night. Just pretty much every night, except for the obviously shorter hours. No, but during the summer, every night things are going off. Then they decided they were going to eliminate that, and it was going to be, okay, Magic Kingdom, they're going to have fireworks on Monday. Epcot's going to have some stuff on Tuesday. Studios will be on Wednesday. So it was kind of rotating. And, that's how they want to do things today. They want to sort of steer the guest flow to a certain park. Maybe not half the other park is open as late. But they put out a memo that basically said, hey, this is being done to enhance the guest experience, because you can't do all 3 of those things in one night, or it's very difficult to do so. So let's not offer it at all, and we're enhancing things. So that was basically, we got a memo that explained that we should tell guests about how this is enhancing their experience because they can't do it all in one night. So they're making it easier for you to choose which one to do. That was just so much BS that I saw right through, and I tried to explain Supervisors, but they were, of course, towing the company line and said, no, this is a great plus for guests. By eliminating things and having fewer experiences, fewer parades, we're making it better for guests. BS. Not true. So that kind of thing where they would get rid of something and then try and pass it off as some kind of plus, and yeah, we got rid of Christmas parties, but hey, look, now you can go to the park during the day with regular guests and not with a whole bunch of friends, and it's exclusively open to cast members. Now you can go just during a regular day. That's not a plus. That's not a benefit. It's worse. So eliminating things is my number 5. Number 4, guests. You're saying, wait a second, weren't guests on your best list? Yes, they were. Guests are the best and the worst things about working at Disney. There were some great moments. I had some great moments. Also at Universal, working with guests, we were given a lot more leeway at Universal to do things positive for the guest experience than we were at Disney. Now, I think Disney came around on that and started allowing more of that to happen. But initially, there were a lot of things I could do at Universal for guests that we couldn't necessarily. I had to get a supervisor or send somebody to guest relations to get them to make some of these things happen. Like skipping ahead of lines and comping food and some things like that. But guests, the worst thing about having guests is they're always doing crazy things. You have to put up with guests. There can be abusive guests. I had fellow cast members who got shoved, got assaulted, got screamed at. People would make guests would make a mistake, and then they get pissed about it and they take it out on the cast member. So they just start yelling at the cast member. Famously, one of my stories that's been on a previous Monorail Monday was a guest who got upset that I asked him to fold his stroller getting on the train, and he just started screaming bloody murder at me as he got on the train, and later accused me of pushing his pregnant wife, which of course we had multiple witnesses that said nobody touched anybody, but this guy, his story got worse each time the supervisor approached him. So guests complaining, guests losing their mind. You've seen some of the viral videos going around of guests getting into huge fights with each other. People just do crazy things, and especially now there's, with social media, there's a certain amount of entitlement people have. People just decide to jump into fountains and film themselves. They're scaling the attractions. I just can do whatever I want, and that kind of thing really got frustrating. Now, I didn't have to deal with the social media aspect of it nearly as much. We didn't have social media back in the day, but we did have people who would bring their cameras, and video cameras were starting to become a lot more prevalent in the parks in the 90s. And so, yeah, you had people sticking their camera in their face and demanding that you perform for them or whatever, and that was really irritating to have that just sort of shoved in your face and then insisted you must dance for them or perform or whatever. Can't imagine what it's like social media now and having people doing that all the time. So guess is my number 4. Number 3, supervisors. Supervisors, they could be great at enforcing things and keeping things and making things run smoothly, and they could be terrible. Good supervisors were good. Bad supervisors were awful. A real detriment to the operation. Some of them, sometimes it was because they're trying to do something for themselves more than help the operation. Sometimes it can be they're not trained properly. supervisors are supposed to be trained on the areas where they're working. If we had a monorail supervisor, they were supposed to go through the same exact training everybody else did, to be trained to work the platform, trained to drive the monorail, only they weren't really going to fail the monorail checkout. They were always going to pass. But they had to take all the same training they were supposed to. Sometimes a supervisor was passed who who kind of did okay, but they weren't really great at it, and maybe they wouldn't have stuck around the department as an operations cast member. But hey, their supervisor's not going to be doing this all the time, so it's more critical that they know what they're supposed to do, rather than actually be performing the day-to-day operation of it. And to be fair, if you're not doing it every single day, if you're trained on something and then you're kind of around it, but you're not doing the work every single day, you're potentially going to forget how to do it. You're not going to remember everything as well as if you're one of those people who are every single day performing those tasks over and over and over again. So that can happen. We definitely had a couple supervisors who came in from outside of Disney. Traditionally, mostly you got promoted from within. People got moved up to supervisor from operations or pulled from other departments. It was best if a fellow monorail employee got moved up to monorail supervisor because their experience with the operation. Second best option was somebody who came in from another department, maybe came from attractions, came into monorails, learned how to drive the train and stuff, and then they then they were a supervisor, but they went through the same training. The worst thing was somebody who came out from another, maybe they were manager at Kmart, and now they've been hired in as a Disney supervisor, and they're getting trained. They had no previous experience with operations, so what they're getting thrown into, they're not really being sufficiently, not until they're there long enough, it's sufficiently experienced with what's going on, and they don't have the work time experience, the operation of things going wrong, handling issues with cast members, or coming to help out during a shortage in the operation. Current big concern of a lot of business today in these current times is short staffing, and I'm sure even the parks are still dealing with some of that. When we were short staffed, could be Christmas, could be Thanksgiving, could be just any old day. We've had a couple of call outs, we don't have enough people. Supervisors are trained in our operation. They are supposed to be able to jump into the operation as much as anybody can and help out. We need help on the platform loading trains. Supervisors should be able to come up and take care of that. Supervisors should be able to jump into a train and take the train for an hour and do their drive time. But most of the time, at least in my experience, most of the time, very rarely did that happen. Once in a while, you might have a supervisor come up and help load a single train and then disappear. Most of the time, though, they were not. They were hiding in the office. They were somewhere else, anywhere but in the operation, participating where we needed them. If there was an emergency, sure, they'd pop up. If there was something going wrong and they had to be there, they were there. But if we were just really busy and could use some help because we're short-staffed, they wouldn't be there. We couldn't count on them. They're in the office doing some nonsense. And I get there's definitely times there's things that they have to do. There's certain tasks they might have to fulfill, or a conference call or something they might have to get to. But by and large, you would see a supervisor maybe sit around the office. You just come off the platform, you go to take a break, you stop by the supervisor office, and they're just sitting there screwing around, not doing anything. And definitely available to help out if we're getting slammed with a guest arrival, or at closing time, handling the guest exit from the parks. And it doesn't necessarily mean just because the supervisor's there on the platform, they don't necessarily always have to be helping out. They can be sort of overseeing the operation, sort of taking an overview of things. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. A supervisor there is kind of overseeing the operation, and figuring out maybe calling between the trains or the attractions and figuring out what can we do better here, where can we shift some help, that sort of thing. But just not being there to help out at all, or just willfully not trying to not helping at all. So that is number 3, supervisors. Number 2 kind of pulls off of that, and that is politics. Not talking governmental politics, not talking about Republicans and Democrats and government politics. I'm talking about business politics, corporate politics, workplace politics. And this is something that most of you probably seen or experienced at any job, whether you're working in the restaurant business, whether you're working in retail, corporate America. There's a certain amount of politics, company, corporate politics, business politics, workplace politics you have to deal with all the time. And that may be, who are you nice to? Who do you have a tough or difficult relationship with? Did you make this supervisor mad? Did you make that manager mad? Are you trying to curry favor with a particular colleague or something like that? Politics were a pain, and supervisors often could be problematic because they're trying to claw each other up for the much fewer in number department supervisor or manager positions. There are not that many. People want to move up. You are in a competition with a lot of little people, a lot of other smaller, less powerful, lower level managers who want to move up. And there's a lot of competition to move up into those different positions. I think I mentioned under one of the Monorail Mondays that I talked about trying to get into PR because I had a background in PR and communications. And basically I was told by one of the people I talked to as far as transferring and trying to get into something like that, and they said you either need to be somebody needs to die, or you need to be related to somebody in the area. There are so many people trying to do the same thing you're trying to do, and I appreciated their honesty. I appreciated that they didn't sugarcoat it and said, "Oh, well, just keep trying. You'll do it one day." No, they kind of told it like it was, and so politics, dealing with that kind of stuff on a day-to-day business, did not enjoy that at all. Sometimes you didn't know what you were going to get from a supervisor, depending on who they were trying to impress. If they were new, maybe they're trying to make a certain impression on somebody. Maybe they're a little more lax in enforcing the rules. Maybe that's the problem. They're not enforcing rules enough. They're not helpful enough in getting things done. But just dealing with that on a day-to-day basis was exhausting, frustrating, and that sort of thing. So supervisor politics is number 2. So now we're up to number 1. What is number 1? Number 1 also relates to guests. It's guest messes, and that's kind of a broad term. Guest messes, guest making messes, guest leaving messes, guest creating messes. Just people are disgusting. Just to be blunt, people are gross. And it starts very simply with, people get sick on the rides. People get sick in different areas. We have people barf on the monorail platform, on the monorail itself, which was disgusting because you put the stuff to sort of soak it up and dry it up so that you can sweep it up and cover the smell a little bit. And we'd have to, if people barfed in a monorail car, we had to close off that car for at least 1 or 2 laps and wait until we could clean this up. And sometimes you might call custodial, but a lot of times it was just simpler to deal with it ourselves. And that, that's bad enough. It's not necessarily the guest's fault that they got sick. If they were drinking on grad nights or something and some kid starts barfing on his way out of the park, that is their fault. But a lot of times it's not their fault. Maybe a kid got sick, didn't eat too much, food poisoning, who knows. But guests often created messes, and that was just even worse. Change a kid's diaper and then just discard the dirty diaper in the monorail and just abandon it. Don't take it out with you and discard it in a trash bin. They just abandon it right there. People would change dirty diapers on a table. And there wouldn't be they wouldn't put anything underneath. It'd just be, I'm just going to change a diaper on the table that somebody else is going to come and eat on here in a minute. And I had a friend who worked in custodial, who did overtime in custodial, and this is much the same way that I did overtime in attractions and stuff. I picked up shifts in attractions, I picked up shifts in merchandise and things like that. And this guy, he picked up a custodial shift over in Epcot, and he came back and we were talking after, and he said, do not ever pick up a custodial shift. Now you get to see some of those custodial folks that are having fun drawing art on the sidewalks with the water and stuff like that. Yeah, that's great fun. But he said people did the most horrific things in these bathrooms, and he said he just told me some really gross stories that I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here, but just suffice to say, people did some pretty horrific things in the bathroom, and he was like, I'm never ever going to pick up an overtime shift in custodial again. So people do disgusting things. The pandemic, people were wearing masks, but they don't wash their hands. People don't wash their hands. People leave their wrappers and stuff on tables. They have their kids spill all their stuff all over the place, and they just abandon it right where it is. People like to take trash and throw it in on the ground intentionally because they want to test to see how fast does a cast member come by to pick it up. That people do that. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of the Disney vloggers do it recently, but I've seen it done in the past. And in my day, people used to do it. You could see they were going to throw it away, and they're mumbling, hey, let's see how long it takes for somebody to pick it up, because Disney had the reputation of being super clean and things would get picked up really fast. That was gross. Disgusting. Don't do that. Don't do that. So people would just do some really disgusting things. They pick their nose, they stick their, pick their teeth and then just wipe it on the ride vehicle. People had sex on the ride vehicles in the ride. People do all sorts of stuff. Yeah, yes. If you're on a ride, the odds are somebody's been doing something disgusting in it. During the pandemic, they certainly were doing a lot more wipe down of ride vehicles and things like that. I don't know how much they're still doing at this point. But people did gross things in the park, on the rides, on the dining tables, and it was just gross. People were just really gross, and that was just seeing that kind of stuff on a regular basis was one of the worst things about working at Disney. Poor hygiene, not showering, sweating, stinking body odor, just all of that kind of stuff. Guest messes is the #1 worst part about working at Disney. So that's it for the top 5 worst things about working at Disney. If you've worked at Disney, what are your 5 worst things? Or if you're a guest at Disney, what are your 5 worst experiences of being at Disney, of visiting Disney? Let us know what your thoughts are below. So thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting if you comment below. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about Monorail Monday, about Mr. Coaster 1 channel in general, and join us for another Monorail Monday in the near future. Not sure what the next one's going to be, but sometime in the next couple of months as we get into the holidays, so we'll have another Monorail Monday here real soon. So thanks for watching, and remember, have a good time all the time.